Okay, so basically tonight you guys are going to join us on a date night. We don't always ask questions, but sometimes it's fun to talk about something than what you talk about all the time, which are kiddos and work and life problems and trying to find solutions. And so tonight we thought it would be fun to ask some questions that we found online. There, the blog post here I will share in the show notes is 250 not boring questions. And so that sounded good to me.
Wow. Yeah.
So I hope you guys enjoy these. Obviously, what's going on in the world right now in February 2022 is kind of crazy. And this is a completely off-topic thing. We aren't going to be going into any of those world events. And I think a big reason for that why is actually Elisha and I were just over at my family's for a event, a family reunion, and I was off the internet for 5 days, and we just came back to the internet yesterday, and I was like, oh my goodness, what is going on? And I just am feeling really heavy by all of that, and so I just wanted to do something totally off topic that didn't take any brain power, because my brain is just in a million different places right now. So this is a really long introduction. Elisha, I'm sorry, but I'm excited to start the podcast. Do you have anything you want to say before we get started?
No, you said great things. If you guys enjoy this podcast, we would love it if you left a rating or a review, or both. You can leave a rating and a review if you're feeling ambitious and generous. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, we would love it if you give this a thumbs up. You subscribe to our YouTube channel. Other than that, let's just get going.
All right.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
And I am glad that you're back in the studio with me. As much as I love your father, and I so enjoyed interviewing him last week for last week's episode, you are my favorite podcast companion.
Well, that's good to hear, because Elisha had to pull teeth to get me out here tonight. After I take a week off, I kind of just get in the groove of not coming out here anymore, and I just don't feel like I have anything to say.
Yeah, this was one of those weeks we could probably count on one or maybe two hands the number of times that we've had a really hard time getting a podcast episode idea. And this is certainly one of them. And that's, I think, what part of the reason why you were feeling not as excited to do the podcast. And I think what contributed to a lot of that for both of us was what you mentioned in the intro, kind of the heaviness of the things going on in the world. There's a new war that's breaking out. People are dying, people are losing their lives. We know a lot of people in the Ukraine. And so, yeah, it's just a heavy time, and it's so easy to just be paralyzed. I think that's kind of how we've felt ever since you mentioned we came back from that ski trip that we were on, and you come back and you see what's going on. And we don't want to be flippant and treat that in any flippant or disrespectful way by any means. But we both just felt like it was just good to pray about that, obviously, which is it's a funny thing that I feel like that circle of thought, it's like, oh, what should we do? What should we not do? What needs to happen? And you come to this place of well, we should pray, almost like you're resorting to praying, when the Bible makes it so clear that we fight not against flesh and blood, but against, principalities and spiritual beings. And we're told time and time again to come to the throne. We're told in Hebrews, 4:16, to come boldly to the throne room of grace. We can come, and James tells us that the prayers of a righteous man availeth much. And we are a righteous person, a righteous man or a righteous woman. And in Christ, we are that righteous person. That's why it tells us in Hebrews, after discussing the great and high priest who is Jesus Christ, and how we have that, we wear the righteousness of Christ because of his atoning work. It's we can come boldly to the throne room of grace with our prayers. So I'm saying that all to say that Katie and I, our heart does go out to the Ukraine in our prayers. We're praying fervently for that. But we're not going to talk about it, our thoughts or our, we're not going to talk about that in today's episode, even though we just talked about it a bunch.
Yeah, I think when Elisha said we had a hard time coming up with a episode topic, it wasn't that we didn't have an episode topic. We have a lot of different episode topics, but to me, it all was kind of like layers of complexity. And with what the world's doing right now, I didn't want to address a complex topic
Yes.
and give it really much thought. And so now we're just going to do something kind of lighthearted. And so we don't have to really think through too much. And so I am excited for this episode.
Me too.
That said. And so we're just going to, we haven't read through these questions yet. I'm just going, I say that. I have read through some of them. We're going to pick them kind of popcorn. I'm going to ask you a get to know you question. And then you're going to ask me a get to know you question.
I like it.
And we'll answer them.
That's great. Are you going first? Or would you
I'm going to go first since
Go
I have
for
the
it.
computer.
Okay.
Does that work? Okay. So, who would play you in a movie of your life?
Who would play me in a movie of my life?
No one's cool enough to play Elisha in a movie of his life.
So like my childhood and then my adolescence and then my young adult.
We don't have to
hood.
pick 3 different actors. You could just pick one.
Okay. That's a good question. I have no idea.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the most whole like look-alike thing I've gotten from people would be the most is by far. It's not like I've gotten a lot of this, but it would be Christian Bale.
You're
Yes.
like, your smirk is so great.
Why? So that's
awesome.
as far as looks go. I don't know if that's true
You're
true
way
or
better
not.
looking than Christian Bale.
Well, I'm more married to you than he is, and so that's probably why you feel that way.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you think that. But as far as like personality that's just a hard question. I've actually never, I can honestly say I've never thought of that. So I don't have a good answer. I mean, that's really the only answer I could give, only because of that's the only person I've ever been told. That's the only actor I've ever been told I looked like.
Okay, so I think he could play you really well, like as far as looks wise and everything. But when I picture someone, just like as you were talking, if he could act like the guy in Sir Walter Mitty,
Is that
if
like
Christian Bale could act like
Ben
that
Stiller?
guy,
Yeah.
it would be perfect.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
Just at peak moments.
Well, that's very, very
The Secret
relevant
Life
to
of
literally
Sir Walter
like
Mitty.
an hour ago. We are at the.
Oh,
this
my
is
word.
this is pretty indicative of kind of how I think we're feeling about life. And you bring up that the Walter, what's it called? Yeah,
I
Walter
think
Mitty.
it's The Secret Life of
yeah,
Walter
Walter
Mitty.
Mitty.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's always like daydreaming about stuff, and he's just like checked out mentally. And I was doing that all evening at when you got home from Costco. I was I was setting up the podcast, and I was here in body, but my spirit had departed, and I was not here in mind, and I felt bad because that carried on. It was like a 2-hour stretch there.
It was. It's like one time, okay, he's being a little absent-minded. You didn't hear me after I was like talking and filling you in on my day, and then it was like you didn't hear anything I said. But then like 2 hours later, it was still happening.
Yes, we were.
So I'm really excited for this conversation.
Yes, me too. I did tune in there, finally. Well, I already know what I'm going to ask you.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
You didn't even read the questions.
I've got my own question.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to ask you.
That is totally breaking the mold. Okay, fine, you could do it.
Okay, when was the last time you genuinely felt embarrassed?
When was the last time I genuinely felt embarrassed? Okay, that's a hard one to just think up on the spot. Can you think of the last time I felt embarrassed? I mean,
No, I can think of some times where you probably should have felt. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
I'm trying to think because there's definitely moments where I'm like, I am so glad Elisha is the one who was here for this. Because I think I embarrass myself in front of you the most, for sure. Like something I do pretty consistently is I was homeschooled. I self-taught a lot of things. Like I homeschooled through college, and I would just read the textbooks. I didn't really have, like, all my professors were online. And so because of that, I pronounce words how they are written, not necessarily how they are spoken.
Yeah, how they're pronounced.
And so I do that all the time,
Yes.
where I will confidently say a word and you're like, oh, okay, that's not what that word is.
Yeah, well, I think I do that a lot too.
But I do that a lot.
It was only like a month ago that we were at that Greek restaurant, and I think you asked me. This was Katie like prepping herself before the waitress came or whatever.
Yeah, I asked him. I was like, "Do you say gyro or gyro?" And he was like,
It's
Euro."
Yeah, it's but at least you asked. I do think that you were genuinely kind of embarrassed when you came home from having your hair dyed.
Oh, yeah.
That was
I was pretty
because obviously the whole
embarrassed by
like
that.
gyro thing isn't really that embarrassing. It's like a pretty petty thing. But I feel like you were like genuine, like you were embarrassed to see me
Yeah.
after that. And,
Or
I
today-
hadn't seen you like that for, I don't know, maybe ever. Yeah.
Yeah, you've never seen me like this. No one
Exactly.
has. Surprise. Or like today. Oh my goodness. Elisha came through the door. I didn't hear him. And I've been working on all this like self-defense stuff. And Elisha came running around the corner and I did not think he was home because I was like talking upstairs to Leon. Leon was upstairs practicing the piano. I was downstairs folding laundry, talking back and forth to Leon. And usually the kids are like, Daddy's home, you know? Well, I guess Elisha was up there with Leon. And then he came down and like was running at me to like bear hug me and scare me.
No, I just
Yes.
wanted to embrace
Oh,
you. That's how
yes.
enthusiastic
And
I
I
was
just
about.
see I'm downstairs in the basement and someone's just running at me and I just scream. It like hurt my whole throat and whole chest coming out and then just dive on the bed in a pile.
Yes.
I was just like, you did not use any of your moves. That was a
You
fail.
went straight to the fetal position. That was your response. Anyways, yeah, you're still getting that muscle memory down.
Yeah. But that said, I don't know. I embarrass myself pretty consistently with Elisha, but he always laughs with me and it's always a good time.
Oh yeah, that's the joy of marriage. You get a bunch of practice reps with your spouse. You know, like before you take it to the public.
Yeah.
You're like, how does this sound? How does this look?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, if you had to go back to any time in history, where would you go?
Well, anybody that knows me knows I've been on a pretty strong 4-year Louis L'Amour kick. And so, yeah, I guess the Wild West, you know, really from, I guess, what is that time frame? Really the 1800s, I think, that's got a lot of appeal. I mean, I know I live in the West. I've grown up in the West. Even when we were just driving through Montana, you know, yesterday, I just love it so much, and I love the idea. And it's crazy how like less developed it is even than now. You know, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, how much less developed it is than the coasts. But I
Wait, what were you saying with the less developedness?
well, it's still so undeveloped. But
Compared to the coast.
yeah, compared to like the East
Yes.
Coast or
Okay.
the West Coast. But I would like to see it even less developed. It's just, I love it so much. You know, I love the rugged mountains. And so, yeah, right now, I think just because I've been in that headspace of Louis L'Amour and Jack London, and they write about the West and they write about the North quite a bit. And so, yeah. So time frame wise, probably the 1800s, yeah, in the West. If I was living here, yeah, like
There's
in
a lot of
Idaho.
caveats.
Yeah, well,
I think that I felt that way too when we were. So this last weekend, my dad was so sweet. He paid for all of us to go on this snowmobiling
Yes.
tour, and it was 2 hours. Like in 7-degree weather, it was freezing. It was snowing, but we were just out in the middle of Montana, like near Glacier National Park. It was snowing. It was gorgeous.
it was epic. It was so cool.
There was all 11 of us kids, 3 spouses, 1 girlfriend, and my parents. And it was just like such a party.
It was. That was a good time.
Anyways, but I was thinking that out there. I was just like, oh, I just want this little cabin in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
And, you know, maybe one day we'll have a little cabin in the middle of nowhere.
Yes. With a nice hot tub.
Some nice 21st century amenities thrown in there.
Okay, I'll ask you one.
Elisha, you don't want to read my list?
Well, I'll read it, but I know which next one I'm going to ask, and then I'll read it after that. Does that sound good?
Okay. All
Okay.
right. What's your next one?
What purchase of $100 or less? What's your favorite purchase? Most recent favorite purchase of $100 or less?
Elisha sees all our bank statements. He knows I probably have not bought anything under $100
Well,
recently.
No, not like an item, because a trip to Costco or the grocery store, you're getting a lot of items for
Yeah,
this money.
that's true. As far as what like sparks the most joy, Okay. It's tricky. Seriously, the under $100 item is tricky. It'd probably be like food things.
Well, okay.
The kids' boogie boards.
Yes, that was
Those
a win.
were $11 each, and those are amazing.
Game changer. Those have been a huge blessing to our family, and we only bust them out at church and on long road trips. And all you could do, what are they? Are they like, is there a battery in those things?
There is, but it lasts for forever because we haven't had to change them.
Yeah, I mean for 3 weeks. So as far as forever goes.
But they're like constantly on. There's not an off button. It's kind of
Yeah.
weird. So the kids just draw on these little boards and then they beep a button and it all erases. So you aren't dealing with the paper
Yes.
trash lying around, and they're really quiet in church. So the kids draw on them in church. And I would say those are a very happy purchase for me.
That's been a win. That does spark joy because we wanted to let our kids draw in church. We thought that was a reasonable activity to let them do while they're sitting with us. But it did end up getting either really loud because they're like tearing paper and sharing paper with each other, and then really messy because then they'd bring all the crayons out and they want another page of paper. And so this has been an awesome solution to that. It's been a huge win. Good answer.
Yeah, good answer.
I would also think their jackets. Those jackets are awesome.
Oh, yeah. Would you? I mean, technically you purchased that, so.
Yeah, well, I was the one asking the question. I guess I was hoping you'd ask me that question. No, I'm joking.
You would say, yeah, they're little orange jackets. Those are awesome.
Those are a big win.
Make me super happy, especially because all 4 kids can match now.
Yes.
It's not like 3 kids and the baby. They all match, so that's really fun. If you could do anything beside what you're doing now, what would you do?
That's pretty crazy because I feel so I don't know. I cannot believe I get to do the things that I get to do on a weekly basis. Like, of course, there's always elements to the business or working that are not enjoyable aspects of it. I mean, like right now we're in tax season. So I feel like, like half of my last couple of weeks have been spent doing tax stuff, which obviously isn't fun, but the business that I get to do, that I'm having to do those taxes for, I love. And so it's like, I love playing music. And I get to do that, through Voberg Music Academy, then through recording my own music. I love creating content in the written form. I think I would love to, and I get to do that. I get to create this podcast, and then I get to work with our awesome team, like work with those people who, I don't know, are just great. I love seeing them every week.
Me too.
I just got done doing the growth initiative, which was amazing. Being able to connect with 57 other men around the world that are like-minded, that like will love the Lord, are passionate about being a godly husband and father and thriving in their lives. Like, that was surreal to be able to do that program, in the name of like work. It was technically,
It was a lot of work.
yeah, it was work. But it was so rewarding. And so it's really hard I think that, if I'm being honest, I think really probably I'd like to feel more equipped in some more, physically strenuous activities. And I just haven't done that for work for a really long time. I mean, growing up I did, because my dad was a logger and I'd go to work with him. And then we obviously lived on the tree farm and stuff. So I feel like I did a lot of physical work growing up. But since I was like 16, I've really just not done laborious work, and physically anyways. And as a result, it's just funny. I just got back from an introduction to winter survival and shooting course. And it did, as enjoyable as it was, it did reveal in me a lot of just like how I've kind of gotten soft, basically, just with the comforts of I guess our society.
That was a pretty epic trip. We could do a whole podcast on that trip.
It was.
Elisha's a good storyteller.
That was great. But I tell you what, we don't need to talk about that now. Yeah. Yeah. I'll ask you a question. Yeah. Maybe you can ask me another question and it can be about that.
Wow. We're just going off script here.
Let's see. This is an interesting. This is called. What's this called, Katie?
250 non-boring questions.
Okay. When you want to give up, what is it that keeps you going?
Okay. Just like the way you read that. If I want to give up, what is it that keeps me going?
Yeah.
Well, it probably depends on what it is that I want to give up in. But I think that I usually really know what I want. Like the end goal is very crystal clear in my mind. And so I just want the end goal so bad, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And so like it's random stuff. Like we got this gigantic, huge mattress and I couldn't get it up the stairs, but I was trying to film this YouTube video and it had to be done that day. And Elisha wasn't coming home from work until like 8 at night. And so I just like pushed the thing up the stairs and it took me like 45 minutes.
Oh, was that back at our townhome?
Yeah, at our townhome.
Yes.
And I was just like sweaty and it fell down and slammed my toes. And like, this is like a very physical example, but I was just like, I will get this up the stairs because if I had to get pulleys and straps and haul it up there or whatever, I was just going to do it. I would have called someone and asked them to help. Like there's really no wall I won't go through when I really want something. So
yeah, that's interesting because really I think have a really good job you do a really good job of, for the most part, not biting off more than that you can chew. And so I don't think you are put in a situation, and that is because you count the costs before you dive in a lot of times. I think, and we do that more and more now.
We're getting better and better. There have definitely been times, where we've made decisions or I've made commitments and then that's been a result of a sacrifice that our whole family is all of a sudden making.
It's resulted in our whole
in order to fulfill that commitment.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the whole family. And that's been really unhealthy. And I think we've gotten, I would say, better and better at that not happening.
Yes.
That was a pretty common occurrence the first couple of years of marriage.
Yeah, I think with that one, it's like you and I really have been aligned on since the beginning of our marriage on just priorities or, our giant five, just being our faith and our marriage and our children. And I don't think that, and when you make decisions and make commitments or start, projects based off of that, then usually what's worth giving up on and what's not worth giving up on.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we have any issue quitting something if it doesn't align.
Yeah, I would say, I like to say I do stop things. I think stopping is different than quitting because it's deciding to end a chapter in life not because it's too hard or because you can't do it, but because it's actually not best. And I know that we could play mind games with ourselves and whatever and talk ourselves really into anything that we want. But if Elisha's like, okay, this is really not a good thing for our family, I feel like it's really not a good thing for my family, we will stop and pivot. Yeah. And that's definitely happened. But I would say also, I think a lot of who you are as an adult is depends on how you were raised as a child, and you can cultivate new character and all those things. And you and I have grown a lot since being married and since being adults. But there are so many things I say in my head when I really hate doing something or really don't want to do it that my parents told me about myself. Like, Katie, you have such a great work ethic, or you're so creative, or you could figure out anything, or you're such a good problem solver, or like all these things. My parents were so affirming. And I will think of that in moments where I'm just like, this is too hard. I can't do this. It's just like, no, it's like these positive affirmations that someone else has spoken into my life. And I think it's just as easy to play tapes of things that people have said that were negative to you and kind of get those voices to talk you out of things that you're doing. But I don't know if I've kind of blocked out those voices or if I didn't have a lot of them in my life because the affirmations definitely outweigh those negative voices when it gets into a battle of the
mind games.
The wills. Yeah,
you're so right. And I think you and I are way different in that case. Where
that's true.
The voices in my head, I think we're always the negative ones. Just kind of like, oh, you never follow through. You start so many things and always drop them. Like that's what I would. And it's just so then you do that. You like live into that. And I think we've been you've helped me like not speak those things in my head with as far as the self-talk. But it's also made us very intentional how we speak to our kids. We want to promote character. To be like, hey, you're a good worker. You're diligent. Like you do hard things very well.
And I want to point out, this isn't a difference in how Elisha's parents talk to him and my parents talk to me. It's what we choose to remember, I think.
Yes.
And
Oh yeah, because my parents
you
were
know,
extremely positive.
yes.
Yes.
And just, my brain does think optimistically, and Elisha's brain is more of a realist. And so sometimes,
Pessimistic. Yeah.
yeah, sometimes he has to be like, hey, Katie, that's not really a great idea. Think that through. And sometimes I'm like, hey, focus on what went well here. Things
Yes.
always go wrong. So
Yes. You're so right. That's good. Yeah, that's good, Katie.
there
babe.
you go.
There you go.
Okay, so I'm going to pick another one here. How can someone lose your trust?
How can someone lose my trust?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that. That's a good question. I think just. I don't think I've trusted that many people in my life. Yeah, like I just know who I've trusted, and I think that. So I feel like I've only lost trust for a couple of people. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think it's like necessarily hurt a relationship, which, that might seem like impossible. I think I've just shifted my expectations. Just kind of like, something will happen. I'll see a response to something in a certain way, and it's like, like mental check, like I'm not going to trust them going forward with this information. I'm not going to trust them with this part of my heart. I'm not going to be as open with them. Does that make sense? Going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
And usually it's just like, I think probably
thing to
what would lose trust, what would cause anybody to lose trust, just probably like, bombastic, emotional, reactions to something, or just a knee-jerk hurtful thing, that is said, or something extremely just kind of, like what seems like lacking self-control, and so I don't think that's happened I can think of like literally probably 2 times where that's happened. And, I would say I'm like awesome friends with those people. Does that make sense still? It's just like, I've got, it's a very small group of people that I feel like I trust, as far as like sharing my heart with, trusting my kids with, all those things, trusting you with. And, so I think that what makes me lose the trust is, it's, I think, probably a lack of self-control.
Yeah, not being like a safe place, just kind of saying the first thing that comes to mind. It's funny because I feel like I've definitely lost your trust before. I don't feel like we're in that.
Oh, not at all. I think it's been a
position
long
right
time.
now.
I would say like 3 or 4 years probably
Yeah.
that that's happened.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
But I think the first, probably weekly, I would respond to something more explosively. I think our first 6 months of marriage for sure.
Yeah, not weekly. I can.
I think so.
That happened just like a couple of times.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I get to go again here. Okay,
Your
here we
turn.
go.
That's the whole thing though. Like when you're newly married, that's when you're learning about each other, and you have to build that trust over time.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just happen right away. Long pause for the question.
What are you most proud of from the last year?
What am I most proud of from the last year? I would say completely transforming the trajectory on which I was going. And this, you've been the biggest part in that. And that is, I think I was really heading into a culture where I was just full-time working, and I needed someone to cook for me, and I needed someone to clean for me, and I needed someone to take care of my kids for me. And that's where I was going. That's the Google searches I was doing, or like house cleaners and cooks, and because I was making money. And I just praise God for the shift that he made, because this has been the most free, peaceful, fun-loving year of my life. And I'm just so grateful that the Lord knew that I think he initially placed that desire on my heart in the first place, to be a wife and mother first and foremost, and then have these, fun hobbies on the side. And then I think he was just faithful to remind me of that, and to close certain doors, and to make certain doors so painful that I wouldn't go through them. And so I'm really grateful. And I'm grateful for you too, in being like, I'm going to take everything on. I'm going to take everything off your plate. We're going to shift this weight of responsibility here. And we aren't going to move forward in the way that we were going.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty proud of that because I was involved in every single aspect of our business in a pretty heavy way. And I couldn't have foreseen how quickly and smoothly we would have gotten out of that situation. And I'm so thankful.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm so grateful for that too. And I couldn't be happier that you're as fulfilled and joyful as you are, you know, really embracing the life that you are now living, you know, as a mommy and homeschool mom. And yeah, just like leaning into it, fully embracing it. It brings so much peace and joy and happiness into our home. And it gives me so much confidence, because what that communicates to me is you're like, no, you are fully capable of providing abundantly, you know, financially for us. And that's what you communicate when you do that. And that makes me live into that so much more.
Well,
but
that's
yeah,
actually
it's just
been really fun too, is just seeing all the projects that you've started this last year with that freedom. And that's been like super cool to be a part of. And I'm just so proud of you. So,
well, I'm so grateful that, yeah, like you said, the Lord's been faithful to I feel like bring us both back to that time and time again, because early on when I was basically having to work full-time jobs to keep the bills paid, you got the businesses started a lot. I mean, we started them together, but then you would really like keep them afloat during the day.
yes.
While I was at work, and then I'd come home and you'd kind of catch me up on everything.
I'd kind of have a checklist of like, okay, this is where we need you, here, here, and here.
Yes.
And you kind of like do those tasks.
And it was so fun initially because it was the side hustle. It's like I was going to work, I was paying all of the bills, keeping expenses paid, and we were working on the side hustle, you know, together. And so you were telling me what to do, and it was really fun. And then all of a sudden, when that became when that was the breadwinning money, you know, and what we were living off of, we didn't realize how much of that the roles hadn't shifted, where you were still directing me and telling me how to do the different things and what needed to be done.
It was fine being like the helpful wife, I guess, was like, oh, do this, do this, do this. It wasn't fun being like the boss.
The boss.
Feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
It was not fun.
Yeah. And we were both trying to find a way around that, and just the way we did it, we just ripped the Band-Aid off. We just went for it. And it got to a place where we valued the function of our marriage and our home so much more than money and whatever monetary loss could potentially come from doing this dramatic shift. And so it's crazy that that you know the businesses have done as well as they have since then, because we made this dramatic change, this dramatic shift.
I feel like you were just waiting to get off the leash and just go do your own thing.
No,
I'm serious.
No, the Lord's blessed it, which I'm so grateful for. But He got us to a place where we didn't, and that's still where we're at now. Is that there's no way we would, I feel like, compromise the health of our marriage and our family again I mean, I'm sure we'd be tempted to, but I know we don't want to, you know, like go back.
It's such a core value. Like I would literally move back into an apartment, start renting again, sell our house if we needed to do an income cut in order to keep our lives functioning the way that they are.
Yeah.
And like as a part of that, it's been so cool to lose my iPhone this last year.
Yep.
Be an iPhone free family between both of us, or smartphone free. And then I think too, just like I've been so grateful for the club and all the women in there. And I just feel so humbled to still be able to be a part of that.
Oh yeah.
And that's been something that's just like, I thought that changing my focus and energy, that was just going to kind of dwindle away. But that has just grown exponentially, and just the women in there are so amazing. And so, yeah, I guess I'm just really grateful. Like pride is saying I'm proud of any of that is kind of the total opposite of the term I would use, because I'd say I'm just so humbled by those things, that I have the ability to stay home. I still have the ability to be a part of this incredible community of women, and that I have the ability to watch you do all of the things that you're pursuing right now. It's just incredibly humbling.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. And it's I feel like what we do right now is so fun, because you are so invested in our home and the children and the flow of it, but then there's so much time on the edges for you to do these fun things, to do the podcast, to do the Get It All Done Club. And so, yeah, it's a really fun flow right now.
It's pretty fun. Do you believe in soulmates? Why or why not?
I don't even know. What does that mean? What is a soulmate?
I don't know. What's your definition of a soulmate?
I guess probably not then, yeah, if I have to define it for myself.
I think Elisha...
Like, does that mean like
I would
there's
think you'd
one
say no.
person created for you or something like that? Yeah, I mean, I think that like God is sovereign over all things. He's sovereign. Yeah, I mean, he's sovereign over everything, or he's not sovereign at all. You know what I mean? Like, that's by definition, I feel like sovereignty. And so clearly he's sovereign over all of those things. And so I feel like you and I are together a part of his divine sovereign plan as a married couple. So does that mean yes? I don't know. You know, like,
I don't know. So do you think that we could have ended up with other people, or that just like was impossible?
yeah, I mean, I think that we almost did. Like, that's what's crazy. I don't know. Yeah. We both almost like were engaged to other people.
Yeah.
You know, and it was kind of crazy circumstantial things that it was God's sovereignty, you know, that ended those relationships. So I don't know. Like, I do not know. Again, God is sovereign, and I don't, in my finite human understanding, know how that works with humans' will, you know, with whatever level of free will we have. I don't know how that works together.
Well, I feel like that's a safe answer to say God is sovereign, because it's true. The whole concept of soulmate is a man-made concept. So does it work in the big scheme of things? Does it not? We don't really know.
Yeah, I don't think...
We never will really know.
And maybe people talk about this that are not like... this has probably been said by a lot of people, but I remember a pastor saying, like, you know, you married the right person by whose name's on the marriage certificate. And that kind of takes away the whole, like, I don't think there's somebody that you meet and that you just like magically connect with and you get along for 80 years of your life. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought you were going to say, I don't believe in soulmates. But then you took it the whole God is sovereign route, and then it's like, oh, maybe he does.
Yeah.
Because you've always told me, and I agree with you, compatibility doesn't really matter. You can just find someone, marry them, and make it work.
I think people have probably done that forever.
As long as you have that same, I mean, I think the core important things are like your fundamentals, like sharing the same faith or, you know, things like that. Same belief system, values. But yeah, like arranged marriages have been around forever.
Yep.
And couples have come out with incredibly good marriages through those.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know. That's just making a marriage not just work, but thrive. Obviously it takes two, but it takes two, like being willing to grow with each other,
and
you know,
work
and
put
work
in effort, and not just like magically align on everything.
Yeah, exactly. Cause that's just, and also people are changing all the time. It's like, you're such a different person than you were when I married you. And I'm a different person than I was when I married you. And so if you married your soulmate then you could be like, well, I'm not that same person, you know, now. And so hopefully you changed at the exact same rate, in the exact same direction that I did. You just have to always be growing together and working for it, I feel like.
Yeah, that's good.
Anyways.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Elisha's tapping out. The soulmate question put him in a bad mood.
No, it didn't put me in a bad mood. It just, I feel like it got like more serious than it was supposed to.
You like got all uncomfortable and are all like
wow,
twitching and getting upset in your chair over there.
I was like, I brought up the intersection of God's sovereignty and man's free will, and I'm like, oh boy, I do not know about that very well. And so
I just opened a whole can of worms. Oh my goodness.
Man.
Okay, well, that was a really fun little get to know you session.
Yes, it was. It's fun to do that, and that's the thing.
It's a fun thing to do.
It is a really fun thing to do, and I like that we're doing that. Even I like it for our sake. I know that it was a fun podcast, and hopefully the listeners enjoy it. And it gives some ideas. But Katie and I were just talking about this on the drive home from Montana. I think because we were starting to hear about the stuff of the world, the wars and whatnot, and we were like, boy, we don't want our marriage to always be just duty and kids and responsibilities and the checklist, or what next week has to, the hurdles of next week, because it can easily turn into that. And it's like, we can enjoy each other. I'm like, there's nobody I'd rather do that with than you, as far as, tackle the to-do list of next week. But I also just want to have fun with you too, and make time to have fun and enjoy you for who you are, because you are a fun person. And yes, there's nobody I'd rather do serious things with than you, but boy, there's nobody I'd rather do fun things with either. And so I like doing fun things.
Well, a little bird told me we're going on a trip next week.
Is that right?
Just you and me.
Yeah, hopefully that all comes together.
So
We'll see.
many logistics to get in place
Yes.
before then. We're gonna have
Yes.
earned this.
Yes, we'll see if it happens or not.
Yeah, but I will link the little article. I just Google searched fun questions. Elisha always comes up with great ones on his own, but I need a little help from Google. I think I got it from Women's Health.
Well, don't want to be sending too many people there.
You know,
but too
I
many
guess
other
that was
resources.
technically a disclaimer, as like it came up as the third option on Google. It wasn't like I was searching the website. Not that it's a terrible website. I don't even know what's on it.
Neither do I.
It just sounds nerve-wracking.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope, I hope you're thriving wherever you're at.
Yeah.
Talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.